Welcome to Silver Bar Stacker, folks. I hope everybody's doing well and enjoying the start of their week. It's Mail Call Monday, folks, and so we've got a few packages to unbox. And before we get into that, I wanted to pose a bit of a question for you all. I was just finishing up watching Savage Stacker's upload for this morning, and he was having a pretty important discussion, in my opinion, around sort of stacking strategies and whether or not as a stacker we are kind of overdoing it and we know our limits. And so I thought that was a pretty important subject because it's kind of tied into the items that I'm going to be unboxing here, which I did pay kind of a hefty premium for. And so now after I've done that, I'm sort of like stepping back and comparing it to some of the other pieces that I've been able to pick up, and I'm starting to realize like maybe I should be a little bit more picky with the things that I'm purchasing, just because it's very important that as a stacker, you know, when you're a collector that's one thing, but when you're a stacker, you're always wanting to focus on value for your money, and when you're a collector, you're wanting to focus on pieces that kind of may satisfy you or check off certain other boxes and may provide additional layers of value. So when it comes down to it, apples are almost never being compared to apples when you're purchasing bullion, and so you always need to do your own research when you are making your purchases. And so I think that it's important, especially right now, while premiums are still very high but the price is very low and the spot price is completely irrelevant because there's no tie from the spot price to the physical price that you're actually paying out the door to have something either shipped to your house or put into your hand, right? Those are two completely different things, and even the paper price is completely different than the spot price too, because that almost is the reverse, right? Instead of it selling at a premium, it'll sell at a unpremium, I guess you could say, right? So it's just all sorts of messed up when it comes down to, at the end of the day, the cost that you're paying. So you always need to be mindful and savvy and informed buyer first and foremost, and you always got to make sure, and the point of Savage's videos, you always make sure that you're kind of staying within your limits. You have cash reserves, you have some savings to take care of your family when you need to. You have some portion of your stack that's a little bit more liquid so that if you're in a crunch in some unexpected circumstances, you are able to easily kind of liquidate and take care of yourself and your family. But you also want to know your limits, and that's going to be dependent on each person on a non-individual basis, because each person has their own set of circumstances. They're all in a different time in life. You know, somebody maybe has already stacked 10 gold buffaloes. Maybe they did that within like 5 years or something. And then you have somebody who's been stacking for like 20 years who still hasn't gotten that first gold buffalo. And so those two stackers might be having the same stacking mentality, but they're just at different stages in their stacking. And so that's really what it comes down to. You just have to be comfortable with that and understanding of that. And what's most important is that you understand your own personal stacking strategy. So let's go ahead and crack open into these packages before people start complaining that I haven't opened any boxes. And in fact, let's go ahead and do some magic and unbox these real quick. Okay? Blah! Blah! Right, so these are the A-Mark Chunky Stackers, but these are actually of the 10-ounce variety. And so you'll see on the back here that these actually have different lot numbers, assay lot numbers, and these are actually lot numbers. They're not serial numbers. There's duplicates of these numbers out there, but these are actually the lot numbers, and so they kind of, I believe that the earlier lot numbers, of course, will be the older bars. And so this is a 784 lot number, this is a 786 lot number, and these are just your standard AM logo chunky stacker 10-ounce bars. So I do like to pick these up, but the premiums have gone really too high on these now. And so, like, you know, for the same premium, in fact, quite a less premium, I could pay like a 50% lower premium and I could get something with an established mintage, right? So these bars right here don't have really an established mintage. Some of the rarer, smaller 1-ounce bars, they have established mintages of like 1,000 or whatever, but there's no established mintage for these A-Mark Chunky Stackers, and there's actually quite a few out there. right now in the secondary market, you probably can't find too many of them, but like there's a lot of these were made, right? Both of the, especially the 1 ounce, right? You saw that gigantic bag of 1 ounce chunky stackers I had, right? There's a lot of them out there. And so when I can get myself maybe like a tier 1 Johnson Matthey pressed bar or something like that for cheaper than in some cases cheaper, then it's almost just kind of like, to me that's a better investment if I'm going to have to be paying a crazy premium for the collectible bar either way. But the problem is that these are super satisfying to hold. Now Scottsdale, they make those stackers, and in fact I think AppMax, I don't know if AppMax maybe works with Scottsdale to make their own stackers or whatever, but there's other stackable bars that are almost like kind of generic bars that come at like a heftier premium, and so like things like the Scottsdale stacker as an example. I don't have any Scottsdale stackers of any size, but I really like those bars. I don't like how they're kind of pressed, so like they're not poured like this, but so I don't think you can handle those maybe with your hands like I can these. But regardless, the Scottsdale stackers come at a much better value than the premiums that these come at. And so for me, that's a much more economical stackable bar to stack, something that's generic if you're trying to stack something generic. And in fact, those are generics now, but what if Scottsdale Stacker changes the design of their stacker, or they discontinue the stackers or do something else? Well, then those stackable bars, which are no longer available, will then become collectible, just like these, which were once common bars and still are kind of common bars. You'll be able to reap the benefits of having stacked generics, and then in the future, these should be kind of like Scooby snacks that you're buying for yourself, in my opinion. Some people kind of go balls to the wall. In fact, I kind of go balls to the wall when it comes to these type of chunky stackers, but I also will have my limits, right? Because there's so many different types of things I'm trying to collect, and so if the premiums are too high, then I just will move on and collect something else. And so these right here are a different variety, and these ones on the back say A-Mark Precious Metals, whereas these ones on the back say USVI Ingot Company. You'll notice that these lot numbers are much higher. So these are 784, 786. This one is 996, 995. These are much higher, and this is because these were no longer like the USVI ones. These were then stamped with A-Mark Precious Metals, right? So originally it was like USVI Ingot Company making them for A-Mark Precious Metals, and then the more modern ones. And so it was previously my understanding that there's like a lot more of these ones out there, the older ones, and there are actually quite a bit more of the older ones. I used to not see too many of these ones stamped with A-Mark Precious Metals, but there's quite a few of these that were made as well, and that I know as well. So both of these are quite common compared to, like if you can go on to allinghiller.com, for example, and you can go to Johnson Matthey 10 ounce bars in particular, and you'll find some that have crazy low mintages. And like I've got some crazy bars. Like there's a Royal Bank bar, for example, that you seen on Savage Stacker's video. That's a 250 minted bar. There's only 250 of them out there. There's a lot more than 250 of these out there, right? So you always have to be very savvy when you're buying. Be an informed buyer. Know what you're getting yourself into if you are going to be paying a high premium, and don't just lock all your money up into high premium stuff, because if you do have to liquidate fast, you are going to have to sell close to spot, and so always understand that, right? Collect these types of Scooby snacks for your own personal enjoyment, and make sure that you are not going too heavy, right? Don't go overboard. Cheers.